Hi, my name is Michael Madel. I'm the Information Security Officer here at IWU. Today we're going to talk about the Data Storage Transmission and Cloud Services Policy. You should have received a copy of this policy via email along with a link to a previously approved policy, the Data Classification Policy. The difference between the two, the Data Classification Policy deals with the different tiers of data that we generate as a university and drops them into three areas: protected, sensitive, and public. It's important to read through this to understand what is contained in these different tiers prior to continuing on with this presentation. Currently, all data that the university and its employees are charged with stewarding should be accounted for, access authorized, and be available for third-party audit. IWU is bound by federal laws such as HIPAA, FERPA, GLBA, among other new privacy laws that are coming out as well. These laws require IWU to handle data in a certain way, and failure could lead to penalties, fines, and reputation consequences. As of now, no defined policy on how data is to be stored locally on employees' devices within the IWU network or in the cloud is present. Additionally, IWU does not have a defined policy as to how data can be transmitted, either physically or electronically. Currently, locations where IWU data has been confirmed to be stored is shown in the table here. On the left, location or service, we're looking at local devices, on-premise file shares, Microsoft products like OneDrive and SharePoint sites, Google Docs, Dropbox, Box, and iCloud. On the left-hand column, we can see where IWU actually controls the access. Right now, we control access to local devices, obviously, on-premise file shares, and anything residing in the Microsoft Office 365 space, which includes OneDrive and SharePoint. Where we don't have control are areas such as Google Docs, Dropbox, Box, and iCloud. There are several folks using these applications, but right now they're not required to use a ID or password provided by Indiana Wesleyan. No controls are in place to ensure certain protected information is not being stored in the cloud outside of Office 365, such as Social Security numbers or credit card information. Data safety. Should an employee leave, there is no guarantee that data they have been utilizing will be removed from their personal cloud storage account. And this includes Dropbox, Google, and the likes. With several cases of cloud file storage currently being used, there is no systematic process that deprovisions IWU user access in a timely manner. And lastly, additional cloud storage avenues are potentially spending university funds that could be used for other initiatives. Now, where we want to go with the Data Storage Transmission and Cloud Services Policy. This policy was created after reviewing many other example university policies, including other corporate policies. Most entities, university and corporate, have this type of policy. This is a foundational policy that obviously instructs folks, employees, agents of the university on where they can store and how to transmit data. This policy references the data classification policy to provide context on the different data categories. It'll define acceptable storage services that can be monitored and controlled not only for the safety of our constituent data, but also to comply with regulatory laws. It'll provide steps to ensure that any cloud services outside of file storage, for instance, soft docs, are properly reviewed from a data security perspective and documented prior to approval. Ultimately, our goal is to simplify, protect, and centralize administration for the accessibility of IWU data. Now for the actual policy. We won't be going into the scope, the statement, the reason for the policy, but we will be looking briefly at the procedures, specifically data storage and data transmission. Under data storage, there's a table here that has the 3 different classifications of data: protected, sensitive, and public. Across the top, the different areas where data can be stored: OneDrive, SharePoint, Office 365 email. The next would be IWU network storage, so the departmental shares and home drives, IWU PCs, laptops, USB external devices, as well as software as a service provider. Now, when you look at this table, there really are only a few items that are not permitted. Credit card information. Across the board, we would really like to steer away from storing any credit card information, as well as storing anything in the IWU protected area, in addition to Social Security number information from local machines. Everything else is acceptable to store that data, including Microsoft's O365. Now, if an employee or department is employing a third-party cloud file storage vendor at the time of this policy's enactment, they must declare this activity within 30 days to IT Client Engagement Services. At that point, a path to mitigate data exposure risk or to migrate the data from a non-approved vendor to a university-approved cloud storage service may be necessary and really must be planned out accordingly. Now, storing data with a software or platform as a service provider. Historically, we've entered into contracts with various cloud application providers to better serve our university and its constituents. As part of an IT review process, the requesting IWU department or college must include client engagement services in the initial planning stages with the vendor when discussing all IWU-hosted data and system integrations. No contract would be permitted to proceed until the above review process has been completed. The next area speaks to data transmission. In this table, again on the left, we have protected, sensitive, and public, with the areas broken out underneath protected. And across the top, 2 main areas: email encryption, and that would be internal email transmission and external email transmission. The second part, really miscellaneous transmission restrictions, for instance, fax and chat. On the left-hand side, under encryption, if it's marked none, there's no requirement. Encrypt, obviously, it's required to be encrypted. The only areas that we require encryption would be Social Security for internal, credit card for both internal and external, and FERPA for external. The policy would propose not to permit any transmission of IWU protected or Social Security numbers externally. Now, if you recall in the data storage table, we basically disallowed any usage or storage of credit card information on any platform. Now, since being here, I've noticed that several folks and departments have, in fact, emailed credit card information for business purposes. And what I've struggled with when putting together this policy is defining the exact special use or business cases for this. So that's why we're allowing encryption for credit card and allowing the transmission. If we encrypt, it actually will fall within the regulatory requirements for the payment card industry. So while I don't recommend it or would never suggest it as best practice to even email credit card information, if we absolutely need to as a university, then we really should encrypt. Under the fax area and chat area, the only permitted transmission types of data would be FERPA, sensitive, and public. Everything else basically would not be permitted. Below this, there are more details on faxing, basically speaking to the environment, some of the requirements, and I'll leave this for your reading. Under related information, we talk about the single file cloud, file sharing cloud service that's permitted, and that's Microsoft Office 365 OneDrive for business. At this point, we're detailing out certain services that are not permitted for any file storage. We define what a software as a service is and give some examples, and then finish up with some legal and regulatory requirements as an FYI. Now, if you have any additional questions, please feel free to fire off an email to me, and I will get back to you as soon as possible. If you'd like me to visit the next cabinet meeting so we can have a further discussion regarding the policy, I'd be more than happy to visit. If the policy is good to go as it stands, please let me know as soon as possible, as I'm trying to finish up with the remaining cabinets and then go to Executive Council to finalize the policy. But again, I'd like to thank you for taking the time to view this presentation. Hopefully everything was clear. And again, if you have any questions, please let me know. Thank you.